My name's Scott. I'm the Biodiversity Rehabilitation Coordinator at Yarra Ranges. Firstly, I'd just like to do a quick acknowledgement of the traditional owners who have connected and cared for our country for many, many years. So I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I think connecting and caring is quite important in terms of my acknowledgement here today, because I think that's what we're all here for as well. We're trying to connect with each other so that we can understand what we're all going through, and we're trying to care as well about bringing that love for nature back into where we live. Dr. Gordon said, why did you come here? Why did you live here? It's because you love nature, because you love this area. So as much as this is a traumatic period and you've gone through a lot of stuff, I think at that point it was very important to be able to hold on to what it is you love about this place, why we come here. I also acknowledge that you guys might not all be in that same space of, I'm ready to tackle my garden, or no, look, I've got all this house stuff to sort out and building permits and stuff. And I acknowledge that, and understand that, and that's okay. I'm not going to go into technical details about redoing your garden, but I'm going to give you a bit of advice on where to go to get that information. Now, one of the things to look out for, and there's a couple of brochures at the back there. These lovely brochures are going to be full of great little identification tips and bits. So we've got one on Australian local plants, we've got one on weeds. Normally I would always be promoting this sort of stuff, and I wouldn't really say, hang on to this, remove it all. I understand that some of these situations, we've got highly disturbed ground, very destroyed earth. So perhaps, and I never thought I'd say this, but perhaps some of these weeds might actually be worthwhile kind of just keeping for now, because as Darren was saying, like the erosion problems are going to be quite devastating if it's bare soil. Bare soil, when it rains, when we get that heavy rain, that's like meteors hitting that soil and breaking up those particles. So even though something like ivy, for example, normally an environmental weed, I tell you to get rid of it. We actually want that ivy to kind of shelter and protect that bare soil, because even though it's a bad plant, it's better than nothing, in terms of protection for that soil. In terms of revegetating your garden, when you do get to that point, and believe me, you will, and you'll enjoy this part, because it's the fun, creative part. You'll get to that point and you'll go, everything I've been through, where do I start? Well, let me tell you where you start. Think about making a pizza. Where do you start with the pizza? Your base. So you start with your base. You need to start making sure that between this time and the time you're ready to start your garden, you've been looking after that soil. Any erosion problems, you've been trying to mitigate any of those. And you start with the base plants. You start with your ground covers, so your running postmans, your kidney weeds, even though it's not a weed, your bidgie widgie, all these type of ground covers, help spread all that out. And we can start moving into some shrubs and some wildflowers, some grasses, and start adding those layers. And eventually you'll get to the point where you're starting to add trees back into the place. And eventually you start getting to the point where you might even add some of these rare and threatened local species into your garden. And if you want your rhododendrons and camellias, that's fine as well, because they're great to have too. They provide a great role as well. So I think once you get to that point, you'll really start enjoying this. And I can't help but, when I see some of these landscapes, I think the shock and awe that, in terms of the change that we've seen here is just mind-blowing. But I can't help but think to a scene in The Simpsons where Homer's a bit down in the dumps about some bad thing that's happened, and Lisa says to him, Dad, the Chinese have the same word for crisis and opportunity. And he's like, yes, Lisa, crisis-opportunity. And I think that's probably what we're in right now, crisis-opportunity. We've had this crisis, we've had this massive trauma, but as we slowly move through these processes, you'll have opportunity. And you'll have opportunity to rebuild, redesign, re-engage with not only your property, but nature as well, and your surroundings and your community. So I think it's going to be a very positive experience once you do get to this last little bit. And I know these roadblocks at the moment may seem daunting, but we'll get there. I'm also going to point out this lovely pamphlet as well. So again, that's at the back. Just down below here, there's a list of a number of nurseries and stuff down here. So this is probably, if you're asking for technical advice about things, these places are the places to visit in terms of, I've got this garden, I need this plant, what could you recommend? These are the experts that are going to be recommending that. And I'm just going to finish off, because I know we're short on time, I'm just going to finish off a couple of quick little tips at this point. Take time to actually observe your garden, even if it's, even for those that aren't able to live at your place right now. Go there just once in a while and just see what's going on right now. Because right now, there's going to be changes. There's changes in light conditions, there's changes in soil conditions, changes in vegetation. So it's almost like a new learning. You're reconnecting with your garden. And when you do start to replant and all these things, that's when you start going to these nurseries and asking for advice, but not only advice on what type of plants to put in, but how to put them in and make sure that we're doing the right things to nurture and care for them. I'll say two bad tips that people often do that think this is great, but it's not. So when you're planting a tree, and you'll quite often see this lovely Tupperware aficionados will get planted, and people will stake it, and they'll put 2 stakes right on top of it, either side. Tighten that as tight as you possibly can, and the tree cannot move in that wind. People think that's a good thing. It's not. The way trees develop their strength to be able to resist strong winds is through movement. So as they are doing this in the wind, they're building up their core, basically. That's what that is. And they're getting stronger and stronger and stronger. If you don't allow them to do that, that's what happens. So make sure that when you do stake, you've got 2 stakes far away from them, and just a rope just to kind of support them, but give them that movement ability. Okay? They need to have that ability to move. Without moving, they don't have that ability to develop that strength. And the other thing I'm going to add as well, this is another mistake people tend to make, is, have you heard of mulch volcanoes? Yeah, a few nods. So again, we plant our tree in the soil. We've just gone and mowed the lawn, thinking this is a great day to mow the lawn. I'm going to just put my lawn clippings around here. I'm going to stack it up to here. So it's right up to the trunk. Don't do that. That's very bad. Because as that lawn clippings and that vegetation is breaking down and decomposing, it's doing that same thing to the tree trunk as well. So it's rotting your tree trunk. So don't do that. Don't place any mulch or lawn clippings right up against the tree trunk. Let it breathe. So it should only be at flat level. Don't pile it right up to the top of the trunk. So just keep it nice and flat. Those 2 myths, now that we've debunked those, should get you well and truly started in terms of revegetating your garden and healing your gardens. And finally, just one more thing. We do have a number of support in terms of vegetation and gardens. We've got the Healing Our Gardens program that will be rolling out to Deb soon. We've got the Gardens for Wildlife program as well at council. Has anyone heard of that? So that's another way to assist people in terms of identifying your needs and your requirements, and we kind of tailor make a recipe for you in terms of what you need and want for your garden. And we also have Gardens for Harvest, so anyone doing vegetables and growing veggies at home, it's another one there. So please feel free to reach out to council, to our local nurseries, a lot of volunteer groups. And if you want inspiration as to what you can do and where things can be, go for a walk in our bushland reserves. Even though some of our bushland reserves have also been affected, go down to some other sites outside of council and have a look at some of their sites. Be able to see what things look like and get some inspiration. So thank you very much for that. And I cannot stress that you guys are in the great hands with Yarra Rangers. We have so much support here, so you're in good hands here.